Lisa here with us to talk about how to ignite the creativity during quarantine. So I'm sure that you have all experienced the rut of being at home and how to keep the creative juices flowing when you don't get to interact with people as often as you're used to. And that's what we'll be discussing today. Lisa, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, hi. I'll be saying a little more about me in my presentation, but thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Thank you so much for being here.
All right, let's kick it off. So thanks to everyone who's playing or listening. We'll be doing a lot of different things, some of which are interactive or otherwise, just hang out, listen, grab a notebook, pen and paper, and hopefully you'll find some of these tools useful. So how to ignite creativity in quarantine. My name is Lisa Pertoso. I am going to tell you a little bit more about myself in a second, but I just want to reiterate the purpose of this talk today, which is to share principles and exercises from improv theater to help you play and get into your creative zone. This is very personal to me during this time, this quarantine lifestyle, because I have felt very stuck more often than usual. So I'm sure you can all relate to that. And I hope that some of what we're going to play with today will kind of get you out of that zone. Again, I'm going to share a bit more about me in a second, but I love to kick off these workshops and talks with a little check-in question. And so this is for everyone to think about. And then if you're in studio, would love to hear your answers out loud. What does being creative mean for you, right? So there's a lot of different definitions of creativity or how people express it. What does it mean to be creative for you? And then when and where do you feel most creative in your life? So feel free to jump in at any time.
All right. So hi, my name is Sharon Mercano. I'm the owner of SharonOr.com. And I feel most creative when I am making something, when I am designing and creating with my hands, because if I have an idea that's stuck in my mind, then it stifles me. It makes me feel very strapped down. So I have to sketch it, I have to make it, and then I feel great.
Great. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to share?
And Juliana, feel free to share it as well.
So can you repeat the question, Lisa?
Hi.
Sure. What does being creative mean for you? And then, when or where do you feel most creative in your life?
I couldn't hear her. I apologize.
When do you feel most creative? And what does being creative mean for you?
I feel most creative. Well, I lean on that. Is it right side creativity throughout most of my life? But I am a designer as well. So when I'm inspired or yeah, that's
great.
the most. It's a thought. It could be me taking a walk and then seeing how something is. Say, I can incorporate that into a design. But creativity for me is life. That's the best way that I can describe it.
I like that. Thank you.
Milanka is a really creative designer and also a mom. So kudos to you for joining, Milanka.
Yes.
And hi.
That's Marley, everybody.
When do you feel most creative, Marley?
Marley, she said, when do you feel the most creative?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. That was the
I had a
answer.
feeling she was going to
100%.
say that. Exactly. That's awesome. I am also a mom, so I can totally relate to being distracted and how do you feel inspired. But also I love having kids around because I feel like those really, they can help inspire you too. So a bit more about me. So I am a mom to a 2-year-old. My name is Lisa Pertoso. But I'm not being a mom. I am a learning designer, facilitator, and coach. And so I'm the founder of Follow the Fear, which is an experience-based learning company. And, our mission and really kind of my mission throughout my 20-year career has been to help people and teams be more human. And when I say human, I'm really talking about giving people the kind of soft skills to help you thrive at work and at life. So that today we're talking about creativity. Other times I'm speaking about leadership or communications or collaboration. I create learning experiences such as talks and workshops, retreats, anything that teams, or sometimes I do things for the public like today, need as well. So the reason I call my company Follow the Fear, and it's also my life philosophy, really comes from improv theater. It is one of the core principles of improv theater. It really just means to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And when you're doing that, that's when you can really learn and grow. And I think, as kids, especially if you're around kids, or you think back to when you were a kid, we were always kind of, pushing ourselves and exploring, and everything was new and exciting. And then as we grow up, we get comfortable being comfortable, right? And so how can we push ourselves to be a bit more comfortable in our everyday lives, and what are the connections to leading to creativity? So that's the theme that I'm going to talk to you about today. But before we jump in, also, I want to kind of think about what is creativity in terms of definition. I think there's a lot of definitions out there. This one in particular, it really resonates with me, by Linda Nyman, who's an author and an artist. And she says that creativity is the ability to perceive the world in new ways, to find hidden patterns, to make connections between seemingly unrelated phenomena, and to generate solutions. So I love this approach because it is about being inspired. It's about observing your world, seeing things in new ways, and then also about doing, right? Like creating the solutions, not just thinking, but also doing. So why creativity now? Before quarantine, I used to talk to teams, and I used to talk about how important creativity is as a workplace skill, or maybe I would speak to entrepreneurs as well, right? We're always using that skill in running our own businesses. So, I would show this slide, and if you're not familiar, the World Economic Forum is a really great resource for data and reports. And they always, about every 5 years, put out a future of jobs report. And they talk about, what are the top skills that are needed to be successful in the workplace. So it's interesting, from 2015 to 2020, we see that creativity has moved up from number 10 to number 3, that's a huge jump, and really interesting to think about, what does that mean for you in your personal life? What does that mean in your professional life? And what's also even more interesting, and I think exciting for people who do this type of work, is that their most recent report, which was from 2018, said that, by 2022, creativity will still be the number 3, in demand skill at work. So that's awesome. And that's something that we know. And I think what's interesting and challenging is that it's not necessarily something that we're taught in a workplace. Or how do we stay creative? We're generally taught how to get tasks done, how to do our work, and to stay focused. And we talk all about, being productive and all these tools for that. But how can we kind of push ourselves to also be creative, especially if this is so important in all workplaces? And now I wanted to say, well, what about creativity now? Really, why are we talking about it now? Great, we need it at work, but I think now is so challenging. Let's acknowledge, where we are in the world. It's pretty much on fire. Things are changing every day. We are living in this unknown and this chaos. And so I think it's also so important to be creative in our personal lives. And of course, that will translate to work, but how are we staying playful? How are we finding joy? How are we being creative? It's so important for us as human beings who are creative beings to stay creative. And this is one of my favorite books that I highly recommend, by Dr. Stuart Brown, who is a psychologist, and he founded the National Institute of Play. He talks just about how animals and humans really need play to thrive in life. It's how we practice solving problems, we take risks, how we work with people, and how we, generate ideas. And I love this quote, thinking about what is the opposite of play. He says that it's not work, that it's actually depression. And I think, just speaking for myself, that these past, what are we at, 9 months now in quarantine? I don't know. I can't keep track, but these months have been so challenging. And I've been feeling a lot of anxiety and just not feeling like my regular self. And trying to find these moments of play or get in the play state, as Dr. Brown talks about, is important to be happy and to be creative. So we're going to play a little bit today. But first, I want to hear again from you all. So I'm thinking about where you are right now in your life. What are your biggest obstacles to being creative in quarantine? And again, just feel free to share out loud or in the chat with Juliana.
So one of my biggest obstacles to creativity was just uncertainty and feeling as if my work didn't matter or wasn't meaningful, because at the top of the quarantine, it just seemed like the world was coming to an end. And I was just like, who cares about leather goods? Who cares about cute little bags when the world is coming to an end? And so I found myself very crippled creatively.
Right.
Hello. For me, during the quarantine, my struggle has been balancing. Being a mom, your duties around the house, teaching, homeschooling my daughter, and still trying to figure out how to revamp my business model with COVID going on. So again, very similar to how you were feeling the anxiety and all of those emotions going around. But one thing for me that I'm realizing, my biggest challenge is if I can stay balanced, then everything can flow smoothly. And I do need time I'm going to read the book because I'm very much a work person, because designing is fun for me, but I turned it into my business. But it still needs balance.
Definitely. Yes, it's a great book, but if you don't have time to read it, he also has a lot of great TED Talks, and so you can watch that and kind of get the same principles. But great. Thank you for sharing. Uncertainty, I'm hearing, what am I doing? What is the value of what I'm doing? And how does that, fit into today's world? And just balancing the everyday life, the family life, the school life. I can totally relate to that as well. I feel like I've never had so many dirty dishes in my life. I mean, I've never had this time where we've cooked all 3 meals and eaten all 3 meals. And I don't also feel like I have the time alone to let my creative juices flow. So yeah, I think it's a challenge to think about, okay, well, how can we maybe fit some of these exercises while we're doing something else, or hopefully you'll feel a little inspired with some of the things we're going to play with today. But thank you for sharing those obstacles. I can relate. So I think it's good to kind of pause and say, okay, we're in this world where we feel uncertain, where everything feels out of control. Well, I really love this quote by Julia Cameron. She says, the creative process is a process of surrender and not control. She wrote The Artist's Way, which I have. It's a book. It's a course. She's a website. It's a huge book that I got from the library. She has a lot of amazing tools in there. And one of the ones that I've really taken to heart, and maybe some of you know about or have tried in your life, is called Morning Pages, where you just get up in the morning and try to write 2 to 3 pages, stream of consciousness, just get out your thoughts, and then go about your day. I can't always do it in the morning, but I do try to do it at some point in the day. So let's surrender. So we've lost control, but at the same time, how can we, set up these guidelines or these kind of principles to stay creative? So what I love about that quote about losing control or kind of surrendering is exactly what improv theater is. So that's why I like to work within this framework of this art form. And it's very, very close to me. I've been doing it for about 10 years in New York, on and off, performing with teams, being on stages in front of people. And it's really a part of who I am, I'd say, at this point. And then I also have translated that into humor writing and doing a lot more writing in my life. So what is improv theater? If you haven't seen it or don't know, it is the art of making stuff up in the moment. And it's basically a stage with a few people and usually 2 to 4 chairs on on the stage. So you're creating a show, you're creating a story with people, and you don't know what's going to happen. It's totally unscripted. So I love that as a metaphor for our everyday lives. But at the same time, all of us on the stage are performing with the same set of guidelines. And I think these guidelines are really applicable to being creative in your life. So we have guidelines and we practice. We don't know what's going to happen, but we kind of know the parameters in which we're playing. So I'm going to walk you through 4 improv principles that we learn as players that are definitely translatable and can help you ignite creativity in your life. So the first one I'm going to call generally as play. In this sense, what we usually do in improv is in order to play, we have to kind of let go and get out of our analytical minds. And the best way to do that is to move your body. So we tend to, before a show, we will get together and we will do warm-up exercises, like physical warm-up exercises. We might use our voices, we'll use our bodies, we'll walk around, we'll take control of our space. So that's kind of the rule number 1, and we'll do some exercises around that. But really moving your body is going to help you just stop overthinking everything. The second improv principle to help you with creativity is to fail. But what I mean specifically is to kind of allow yourself to fail and make mistakes and then keep going. When you do this, you kind of suspend your judgment, and that is when you create that space, you're not judging yourself, you're not judging others. And I think these first 2 principles are definitely related to if you play like a kid again, if you fail like a kid, if you think back to when kids are playing games, if you're around kids, or if you remember back to that time, maybe there's some rules, maybe someone makes a mistake, maybe they trip, maybe they fall, maybe the piece falls off the board game. They usually just laugh, or someone calls them out and they laugh and they throw their hands up and they keep going. They don't usually say, "Oh, that's it. I'm done with this game. I'm out." They keep playing. And I think that is what allows kids to be very open. And as adults, we tend to really judge ourselves even before we get started, before we get in that play state. So it's really about suspending judgment, kind of allowing yourself to make mistakes and move forward. The third principle from improv is listen. And when I say listen, I really mean to actively listen. So both in your mind and in your body. And this will help you be present. So if anyone here is familiar with, mindfulness practice, this is very much connected to that, whether you do deep breaths or you do yoga. You're really getting in touch with the moment, and you're listening with your ears too, but really listening with all of your senses. So you're observing, you're hearing, you're seeing, you're allowing yourself to kind of be changed by what other people are saying or what the reality is, or you're just very open and present to what is happening. And the fourth principle that many of you may have heard at this point, it's talked a lot about in the business space or just in the world in general, is this principle of yes and, that was really hammered home to us in improv. And what that essentially means is to support and add value. So you're agreeing with the reality around you or the chaos, let's say, and then you're building on that. And this is something that can help you be more creative, especially when you're with other people. I used to work with people to do brainstorm meetings at the workplace, and we would throw some ideas around, and the first thing that someone would do is say no, no, that's not going to work, here's why. And what I started seeing was that as adults, our no muscle is really strong. We are so used to saying no. We're older now, this isn't going to work, we have a lot of experience, and here's why. I think there's a time and place for that type of thinking, but if you want to be in a creative state, you really have to play in this yes and space. In the improv sense, if you jump on a stage, you really want to create a story and you want to move a scene forward. So, a good example would be like 2 people are on a stage, and let's say I'm with someone, and I say, "Hey, Juliana, thank you so much for coming aboard my boat. I'm going to give you a ride today." So she could say, Yes, she can yes and that and say, well, thank you for inviting me. I love it. This is such a beautiful yacht you have in the Mediterranean. So she's playing along. That same scene could happen where I could say, thank you for coming on this boat. And Juliana might say, no, we're not on a boat. We're in a car. And that type of sort of no is going to really stop the creative flow, right? Like where could we go? We want to build this scene together. We want to play together. We want to collaborate. So I think it's helpful to think about yes and in the workspace, it's very helpful also in your personal life, with partners, with friends, and we're going to jump into some of those exercises that are going to demonstrate all 4 of these principles. So we're going to play with those. But before we do that, I do want to see if there is any questions so far.
I don't have any questions. I'm super excited.
Great. Okay, cool.
So I saw a question online, and it's
Great.
There's free yes, but.
Sorry. The question was what?
Is there space for a yes, but? Right. So, I think it was a long question, but I think what this person was talking about is like their boss is always throwing more at them, right? Do more and more, say yes, and, but when you have so many things, is there ever a point where you say, well, this isn't urgent, nor is it important? So yes, but maybe 6 months. Maybe in 6 months, I'll yes and that.
Yeah, it's a really important question and something that I feel we come across a lot in the workplace, whether it's we're working for ourselves and pushing ourselves too hard or working for other people. I don't want to say that there's no space for no or yes, but, because I think there is. I think what we want to stay focused on today is the creative space and kind of the generating ideas, getting in that kind of divergent phase of thinking or coming up with ideas and being inspired. And then after that, usually you would come together and kind of narrow down. So, in that specific question, I would probably want to yes and that boss's reality, right? So they must feel overwhelmed, or why do they feel like there's so much to be done? Could you dig a little deeper? Could you ask a few more questions and say, yes, and I'd love to help you out. It sounds like there's a lot going on. Like, can you help me prioritize? I think it's helpful to kind of shift things into questions and figure out, like, what is this person's actual reality? And usually they're feeling some pressure too, right? So it's really kind of about seeing eye to eye and listening, and then in this case, hopefully working together and say, like, here's what I can do now and here's what we can do later. But that's a really great question. And I don't think that yes and is great for everything all the time. It's not. But in the creative space, to kick it off, it is. But we're going to jump in and do an exercise. We'll have a few exercises. I'm going to see how it goes. I'm going to go with the flow here, but we may touch on that point a little later. So thank you for that question. Is there any other questions?
So let's take questions from StreamYard first. If you guys also want to ask anonymous questions, you can type in the chat before I go to questions from Facebook. Okay, so here's another question. What is a practical application of yes and in a business setting?
Also a great question. I want to put that on hold, because I think that might come to life through some of the exercises, and then we can revisit that after.
Very cool. We did a yes and exercise yesterday at Street Entrepreneurs Talent Exchange session.
Okay.
When we were brainstorming around marketing ideas for an entrepreneur.
And how did that go for you? What was the results?
So I think when you say no to your ideas, your brain starts telling you no before they even emerge, right? So getting out of that very critical mindset of a quote unquote work environment and saying yes to your ideas and being open to your ideas gets the juices flowing, right? So
Mhm.
obviously a lot of the things that came up were just not applicable, right? And there's a different time and space to be critical and to put on a black hat and say yes to this, no to that, right? Or maybe
Mhm.
yes to this now, yes to that later, right?
Mhm.
But in the moment, just anything goes. There's no stupid idea. Just say yes to everything. It gives your brain permission to ideate, right?
Definitely.
Because I think people are so afraid to look bad, right? And there's so much, and it also, in some ways, it retrains the culture, right? So there's
Mhm.
a lot of cutthroat corporate environments that are where there's a lot of animosity and toxicity and aggressive behavior, right? So it kind of teaches you to communicate in a kinder way, in a very, of course, not intentional way, by just being open to ideas.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're definitely speaking about structure. So in terms of in the workplace, if you are running a meeting like that, you have to be very clear. If you're leading that, what is the time frame or that we are going to play this yes and game and follow those type of rules. And then when are we going to wear the critical hats? And there, like you said, there's a time and a place for both. But they don't work at the same time. And
Yeah.
in order to be open, you need to do the kind of yes and piece and then decide when is it time now to shift gears. So that's a good example.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people who are really wired to be critical and devil's advocates can actually do really great ideation when they start being devil's advocates on everything, right?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so this is great. I'm going to make a note that we're definitely going to do an exercise that's going to kind of highlight that muscle.
Awesome.
All right, anything else before we start to play? All right, well, I'm sure there'll be questions that will come out from this, or maybe they'll shift, but we will definitely, let's jump in and play. And you can stop sharing my screen, and I'd love to see everyone's faces that is playing today on the screen.
I'm nervous.
Okay, no need to be nervous. This really is, there's no mistakes. It's going to be fun. And if things might get a little uncomfortable, but that's the point. But fun, but good and comfortable. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being open and playing. So the first thing I want to do is I do want to get into our bodies and just get in that kind of play state. So I encourage you to just kind of make sure everything's out of your hands. And we're going to play a little follow the leader. Super simple. I'll start, but basically you're all just going to mirror me. So I'm just going to do some small movements and you're just going to copy what I'm doing. And as we go on, I'll then just call someone else's name and then you'll be the leader and you can do whatever and we'll follow you. And then we'll do like 2 or 3 rounds of that. Does that sound good? Mm-hmm. Okay. So got to keep this simple since we're in a square here. So let's just put our hands up. All right. And this will be a nonverbal, so I'll just move without talking after this.
This is relaxing.
Good, I'm glad. I was actually need to stretch. Okay, Malanka, you're the leader now, so we're going to follow you.
Okay. Talk about stress. So I roll my neck because sometimes my neck starts cracking, and I analyze about weird things. So y'all roll y'all necks. I roll my shoulders up.
Great, and I encourage you to just do the movements, and you don't have to narrate. And I think that'll help you relax more as well. Okay, Juliana, you're the leader. Okay, Sharonora, you're the leader. All right, Lakeisha, you're the leader. Okay, we'll pause. We'll shake it out. Okay, great. That was our first warm up. How do people feel?
Relaxed.
Relaxed. Okay, that's good. I like that. How do people feel doing that in silence?
I think once you told me to stop narrating, you can tell that I'm an overthinker.
We all are. But yeah, and I think you just need to be reminded of like, it's okay.
There came a point where I ran out of movement and I got really scared. And then I had to remind myself and was just like, there's no reason to be fearful. Just keep moving.
That's so true. That's awesome. Exactly. No one's judging, nothing, no wrong. I like that. I love following other people because you're coming up with things that I am not thinking of either, right? Like I'm already out of my head just following you and I don't have to think anymore. So that's great. So that's something you can do on your own. Obviously, that's maybe not as fun, but you can also just like turn on a video and just mirror whoever's talking and do just to get out of your head and not think so hard. So that's a great warm up. I'd love to use, I think also another tool to use is sound. So instead of words, which we'll get to later, so we've moved our bodies, we can use sound. We're going to create together a sound machine that has never been created before and probably will never be created again. So I'm going to kind of guide you through it. Each person is just going to make a sound and repeat it. So for example, if you just want to start going beep, 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 you just keep doing that. And we're going to add on to that. Or maybe you're snapping your fingers, doesn't really matter. You're just going to keep repeating the sound that you choose until we're all doing it. And then I'll tell us when to stop. Okay, so I think it's easiest if I call out names to add on to it. So Juliana, why don't you start us with any sound and just keep repeating that sound.
La, 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 la.
Sharonor?
La, 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 la.
Milanka?
La, 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 la,
La, la,
la,
la,
la,
Lakeisha?
la, 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 la.
Chew, chew, chew. Chew, 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 chew. Get louder. Chew, 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 chew. Okay. Woo. All right. I like that. How'd that feel? A little weird, a little fun. I like listening to it.
The vocal release is really relaxing. Just speaking feels really nice.
Yeah, it can be, right? I feel like that's not something you do every day. I mean, maybe if you're a parent, you're probably making a lot of weird sounds. I know I am, but not in my everyday and not in my work life. So that's really fun. You can do that along to a song if you're by yourself, or just grab a friend and just ask them to do it. Yeah, so that's what we call sound machine. So we did mirror, we did sound machine. This is the last exercise that we're gonna stay in this nonverbal world. where we're going to throw around an object to each other, but it's going to be an imaginary object. So I'm just going to pick it up. Okay, so here it is. I'm going to make sure you can all see my camera here. So it's here. It doesn't matter what it is. We're never going to name this thing. But I'm just going to toss it around, and I'll have to call someone's name. You'll catch it, and then what you can do is you can change it into something else, and then you're going to throw the new thing to another person. So let's just call out each other's names since we're on video. We can't make that eye contact, but we can start out slow, and then maybe we'll speed up a bit. Don't worry, there's nothing to mess up. You're just taking an object, receiving it, and then you're changing it and throwing it to another person. Cool? Okay, so let me pick that thing back up. I am going to throw this to Lakeisha.
I am going to throw this to Melanka.
Charnor. It's a little bigger, but here you go.
Great.
Juliana.
Okay. Juliana, you can change it to something else if you want.
Lisa.
Okay. Melanka.
Oh. Lakeisha, sending it down to you. I'm saying.
Sharonor.
Juliana.
Milanka.
Ooh.
Sparkles
Lisa,
now.
this is for you.
Oh, thank you so much. Sharnor?
Lakeisha.
Juliana is a little fragile.
Okay, Juliana, pause. You're going to hold that. Okay. What does everyone think this object is? Just call anything out.
It's a tribble from Star Trek. It's a little furry animal that purrs.
Okay, I like that.
Is it dough? That's the only thing I can think of that you might move in that motion.
Oh, like cooking dough, bread dough? Okay.
Yes.
Star Trek thing, bread dough. What else comes to mind?
An object made of glass.
An object made of glass. Juliana, what do you think?
It's a chocolate.
Oh, a chocolate. Awesome. All right. So that is pass the object game. How did you feel doing that? And then what did you think when it was coming to you, when you had to pass it on?
There was a point where I froze, where I didn't know what it was or what I wanted it to be, but I just kept moving, and I was just like, oh, this is now a cup.
Yeah, I saw that cup.
Informed the next item.
Yes, the movement informed. I liked that. Kept going.
Someone's asking what this exercise is called. Patricia is asking, actually.
I call it pass the object. It's possible that people call it other things. That's the funny thing about improv exercises. We all know them, but people probably have different names for them. Toss an object, pass the object. I love how you said you kept going. That's really the point of creativity, or like getting into that zone, getting out of that judgment space, just push forward and playing. I like that. And I really think, again, it's so important to help yourself get out of your head by not using words all the time. Or like, oh, I have to come up with an idea. Like this is bread dough. This is a bird. It doesn't even matter. It just, again, having the movement, Sharnari, as you said, inform the next thing. So again, movement, sound, nonverbal communication, super great tools to get you in the creative space. Just being mindful of time. Okay, let's see. All right, I want to do the kind of yes and ish exercise that has come up in a few questions. So this game is called Really Terrible Birthday Gifts. So we're going to give each other gifts. It's all of our birthdays. It's amazing. We're all having parties and we're all giving each other gifts. And so I'm going to think about the worst, just a very silly gift. So I'm going to, let's say, and we'll go around in a circle. So, a circle in my, whatever I'm seeing. So Sharnor, you're to my right. I'm going to say it's your birthday, right? So I'm going to say, Sharnor, happy birthday. Here is a pile of dead leaves. And you're going to say, thank you. And then you're going to tell me what that is the best gift that you could ever have in your life right now. Okay? So Sharnor, happy birthday. Here's a pile of dead leaves.
Oh my God. Thank you, Lisa. I am so happy that you gave me these dried up, crispy, crunchy leaves, because now I can just crisp them all together and make funfetti to celebrate my birthday. I'm so excited.
That is perfect. Excellent. All right. So Sharnor, you're going to give another terrible gift to Lakeisha.
Happy birthday, Lakeisha. I wanted to really celebrate this momentous occasion with a dirty diaper.
You tell us why a dirty diaper, you're so happy for that.
Thank you. I am so happy for a dirty diaper because I have something that I can put in my trash. I bought a new trash can and I have something that I can put it in.
That is awesome. All right, Lakeisha, you're going to give a gift to Milanka.
Hey, Milanka, I am going to give you some shoes, but one side is missing. Happy birthday.
Oh, Lakeisha, thank you so much for these shoes. And even though the one side is missing, you've known that I'm a fashion designer, so you know that I will get some E9600 and throw some leather up there and I'll figure it out.
Amazing.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
You're welcome.
Milanka, you can give a gift to Juliana.
Happy birthday, Juliana. I wanted to gift you with some leftover lasagna. And hopefully you can enjoy. I'm a pretty good cook, but it is leftover lasagna. Here you are.
That's actually a great gift. I love lasagna so much. I'm gonna reheat it and eat it watching Netflix.
That sounds really good, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, Juliana, you can give me a terrible birthday gift.
Lisa, I'm gonna give you some used shoes.
I am so excited about used shoes because I'm very passionate about sustainability. And even if these shoes are too big, I'm just going to stuff tissue papers in the toes and I'm going to wear them all winter. And they're going to be even extra warm because of the tissue paper. So thank you. All right. That is bad birthday gifts. Yeah. How did you feel? What did you kind of take away from that, doing that exercise?
It forced you to look at the glass as half full, and so you had to look at the brighter side of the situation.
And it's going to help me later on when somebody presents me with some BS. And I'm like, oh, thank you. I don't have to accept it, but hey, I can figure out another way on how to react.
Yeah, I like that. Any other thoughts?
It shows that you can use anything and, make the best of it or do something good with it with the right perspective.
And do you feel that could be applicable to all of your work lives or personal lives?
For sure.
Yeah. Reframing is everything. So I got the best gift by far. So I didn't have much reframing to do. It was like, yay, I love carbs. Thank you. but totally, it does.
Yeah, so that isn't just another example of the yes and principle. And sure, it's fun and silly, but I think every day we're kind of thrown into these terrible situations or these challenges or thrust upon us, and how can we shift them into an opportunity? So I just think it's a really great mindset to have, especially in your personal life, in your work life, if you're about to go into a meeting and ideate, like Juliana, you were just talking about, or you're going to brainstorm your next thing project that you're going to do. A lot of us are working alone a lot as entrepreneurs, right? So just practicing that mindset for yourself too, like not judging your own ideas and okay, maybe that's a terrible idea, but how can I morph that? How can I shift that? Or let me just write that down and come back to it later. That kind of positive glass half full mindset is part of the yes and principles. So it is 15 minutes to the hour. Do you want to do questions, or did you want to do another exercise?
Let's do another exercise.
Okay. Let's see what I have here. Okay. All right, let's quickly... Oh man, I have so many things. All right, can someone pick up something around them that's just a regular everyday object and just show it to us on the camera?
Chapstick.
Okay, perfect. All right, so Cherno's got this chapstick, so I want us to look at that. Oh. We know what chapstick is used for, but I want us all to start calling out super quick, what are all the uses that we can do with that little tube that is not chapstick? Like, we know what it really is. What can it be used for? Can we use it for anything other than that? And how crazy can we get with that?
Stain remover.
Okay, stain remover.
Hide.
I would like to use it as an
Lotion,
earplug. What?
Oh, earplug.
I was going to say earplug when my daughter is screaming. I'm just going to stick it in my ear. What are you going to say, Malaka?
I will use it if I'm a bit ashy.
That's right. Use it for our dry skin.
I've 100% done that before.
Yes.
I have to.
I can use it as like a fragrance, put on my clothes, perfume.
As a fragrance, yeah, I like that.
I have little hairs that always stick out here, so I might.
That's right.
Yeah.
Stick them back down. That's a great idea.
Little pump. Baby hairs.
Oh my, yeah, and my eyebrows too.
I
have one eyebrow that just always sticks out. So
that's great. Maybe if I lose my pen, I'm just gonna make a note on my window instead of pen and paper. I'll just do that. There we go. I like she's demoing for us. All right, cool. Here's an object. What can we do with this besides what it actually is? Doesn't matter what it is.
A box doesn't fit, you can cushion a little bit.
Okay.
You can use it as cushioning, like for the perfect space.
I'm going to do another earring as well. It could be an earring.
Oh, I like that.
Nose ring.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you can connect your nostrils together.
That's right. Just what we've always wanted. Could be.
For your finger. That's
right. A lot of jewelry.
Ponytail holder.
Ponytail holder. If I have a very
Fake
tiny,
mustache.
oh, I like that. I was gonna have a very tiny dog. This could be its collar. Super tiny.
Use it if you're making a cake to write with the frosting.
Oh yeah, that's right. Happy birthday. That's great. All right. That is a sampling of something that you could do in your everyday life, taking ordinary objects, thinking about what is a use that is not their actual use. And what I like to do is, especially if I'm by myself, time yourself and get a pen and paper and think about how many other uses for this thing in like 15 seconds or 30 seconds. That can kind of get the creative juices flowing. And in my experience, the less time, the better. You definitely don't want to give yourself too much time for these things. And so that's something you could do by yourself or with people around you.
Lisa, are there any case studies that look at companies, organizations, or startups who practice creativity actively, and how they differ from companies that don't?
That's a great question. I will say that I have a lot of articles and resources about using improv as a tool, as a creative tool within companies, to especially, innovation teams, design teams, marketing, advertising. I think it depends on, I don't even want to say I think creativity is industry agnostic, but I think it really depends on the culture inside the organization. Are they allowing space for people to be creative? And as you can see, right, it's not in our everyday task list. You don't write down like, be creative from 9 to 10. But sometimes we need that. Sometimes you may have to carve out that space and give that especially to your staff and say, do whatever it takes, whatever you need. And maybe that's go for a walk. Maybe that's do some of these writing exercises. Maybe that's for you and some teammates to play some of these silly games. So I think, any organization has the potential to be creative and create that space. I think creativity and productivity are definitely linked. I think they're related to happiness and well-being as well. And there's a lot of research on well-being and what to do to get there. There's actually a great course that I'm taking now that's free on Coursera. It's by a Yale professor. She's a professor of psychology, and it's called The Science of Well-Being. So it's the psychological science of well-being. I think I'm in week 5. It is amazing because it's really giving you a lot of tools. Some of them are like this, like what to do every week, and it gives you the science to back it up. So,
So if you want to take this to your boss and say, I think we need a little bit of improv in our meetings, how can you? What is the number one thing you could say?
I always want to ask people, what are your goals for your team or your business, right? So let's start there and kind of work backwards. So I think a lot of people say, well, let's do team building, and maybe improv is a great tool for that, which I think it is. But beyond that, what are the challenges that your team is having? I always like to ask people, what are your pain points? And then what are your kind of business goals or your team goals? And I think when your team plays together, when they feel playful, when they feel open, when they're kind of building that psychological space for trust, they're going to be better at everything they do, whether that is selling stocks or that is, designing shoes. So I think improv is a tool. It's not the means to the end. I mean, sure, can people do an improv show? Great, but that's not what we're doing. We're using it just as a tool, and it's often used for creativity. It's often used for being stronger communicators or being better leaders or being more self-aware. So the question is always well, what are your goals? And then what sort of tools should we use to get you there?
Awesome. And Karen, you had a practical application for improv.
Yeah, I've taken improv for the past few years, and you might not be able to tell, but I started taking it because I have stage fright, and I would get people and my throat would close and I'd get really nervous. And I'm a teacher, I'm a professor, and so that didn't work for my chosen profession. And so I started taking improv so that I can trust myself in the moment and just really feel really comfortable getting up and not knowing exactly what I'm going to say, but knowing that I could trust myself for it to come together in the moment.
That's great. Yeah, I know a lot of people that have taken it because they were shy or having stage fright. And I am still not a full extrovert, or I think people make assumptions. Oh, you've done all these shows. I'm still sort of half and half, right? Like introvert, half extrovert, and can be very shy depending on the situation. So it has helped me so much over the past 10 years as well.
Are you ever self-conscious afterwards? Because it requires a lot of vulnerability to just say what comes to your head, and trust it. Are you ever self-conscious of what you said afterwards?
Usually there's not time until the show's over, and then I think, oh, I could have said this and that would have been better. But one of the nice things about it is like you're never going to do that same show again. That's it, right? Same people, different audience, but you're never telling that same story again, which can be very comforting. But one of the ways you get yourself out of that is you do so many of those group exercises before you perform, you don't have time to think. I mean, there's no time, and you know that you're being supported. So like Sharnara said, you're trusting yourself, but you're also trusting your other teammates to support you. Like, even if you freeze, they're going to be around you. They're going to say something. They're going to move the scene forward. They're going to take care of you. That's another principle of improv, to take care of each other. So, there really isn't time to be self-conscious, which is great, right? Because then that trains you in the real world to not be so self-conscious or so hard on yourself.
One of the impetuses of this workshop is entrepreneurs are going to be pitching very soon. So we have street pitch coming up soon to be announced. And there's a peer selection process. So they pitch each other, and then that's how the finalists are selected. And then the finalists pitch an audience who invest in them. So street pitch is like American Idol meets Shark Tank, but the people watching are the sharks, right? And it's a lot of people are going to be speaking in public for the first time, or a little bit afraid of speaking in public, and improv can help with that, right? So what are some of kind of the lessons, right, that you've taken from improv, and how can entrepreneurs kind of learn from your experience vicariously and use that as they're preparing their pitch?
That's super exciting. Good luck to everyone doing that. I mean, my first piece of advice is to be okay with being nervous. That's totally normal. And nerves are energy. And so you want to kind of just refocus those nerves, like have them. It means you care about what you're about to do, and you're a little afraid, and that's okay. And I think the best way to start doing that is, so for me, when I do these types of things, I'm always moving my body. So I'm very into yoga and other types of things, but even if you have just like a few minutes before you're presenting to kind of, sometimes I jump up and down, sometimes I do those stretches that we were all doing, and I'll take maybe 3 deep yoga breaths. So moving and breathing and really getting into your parasympathetic nervous system and calming down those stress hormones is very important. And I think one thing from improv that we're always listening for is laughter. And we want to make sure that the audience is with us. So improv comedy is so different than stand-up comedy, where it's like you against the people are judging you in the audience. The improv audiences want you to succeed. They want to come along on the ride. They want to be on this journey, and they want to be surprised because they don't know what's going to happen either. They're very empathetic. So if you're nervous on stage and you freeze, they're going to feel nervous for you. And so that's very comforting to know. And I really think that when people are listening to people speak, they generally also, they want you to succeed. They want to hear what you have to say. They want to be engaged. They want to be surprised. And that's just human nature. It's about mirroring, like we did that mirror exercise, right? So if you can project confidence, whether you feel it or not, that is going to shine through, and everyone's going to be on board, and they're going to listen to you. And, of course, you have to prep, and you have to go over your slides and whatever you're presenting. But if you can just leave people feeling kind of energized or excited, then they're going to remember you for that. They're not going to necessarily remember you for all the words that you said, or maybe you said something wrong or a statistic. I mean, most people aren't remembering that. They're just going to remember how you made them feel. So if you can kind of focus on that type of energy, I think you'll be successful.
Do you have any improv exercises to practice confidence and to build confidence in yourself and in your business and your ideas?
Yeah, I do a lot with body movement and kind of having movement guide, well, I'll call it character, but guide your emotions. So sometimes it's just like moving your body, just sitting in a confident way. So if your body is confident, then your mind will follow. So it's a little harder to do on a call like this, but when you're sitting up straight, where are your shoulders? Just say, doing kind of a body scan, where's your head, where's your chin, where are your shoulders, seeing yourself on video, like how does that present? Are you hunched over and you don't realize it? Are you too close? Are you too far? So I like to look at if it's video in this case, you're kind of playing around with your little box, the space.
So what about for people who struggle with body consciousness and with self-esteem? How can they practice?
I think you have to really dig into what makes you feel most comfortable and confident. And so it's different for everybody. So for me, I'm always thinking about what am I wearing that I'm comfortable in? I like earrings. In the world of Zoom, earrings is my new thing, right? Because that's all you can see. I tend to wear black because I don't have to worry about having something that's distracting when I present. So I think just doing some little self-exploration. I do a lot of journaling, and I think little nuggets of information about yourself come out there. But knowing maybe you need shoes, maybe you don't need shoes. I mean, what's your most comfortable chair? And again, like, how are you presenting physically? And just practice that and like deliver that. I record myself a lot on video and audio, which is not my favorite thing to do, but it is making me a better presenter. And then getting feedback from people that you trust. So especially if you're pitching, ask a friend or family member or a colleague, hey, can I run this by you? And just, I trust you, you're here to support me, and taking that feedback and seeing how you can integrate that.
Awesome. Do you guys have questions before I go? I keep asking questions from the Facebook page and Twitter.
Oh, I do have a question. Have you been able to practice improv since quarantine virtually, or like how? I haven't done it since before quarantine.
Yeah, I have taken an improv workshop. I think it was about I think it was 3 hours, which is too long for me. It's very hard to translate that to the Zoom space, right? You miss the eye contact, the energy of the people, but I find that short spurts work for me. So I actually ran some of my own 30-minute sessions that were just game-based for some of my clients. And we left so energized, and it was like only 30 minutes. So I realized less is more. Mm-hmm. There are definitely some exercises you can translate, like some of these and a few others that I have. I also do sketch comedy writing, which I've done on Zoom, where you kind of learn the principles, you go home by yourself and write, you come back and you read it and hear it out loud, and then feedback. So that has been a way of like flexing that kind of improv muscle, but in a different way. So maybe you want to try that. If you want to email me after this, anyone can, and ask me questions or tweet. I have some online resources if you want to join a class, or if you have other questions, definitely let me know. I'm happy to share those.
Thank you.
But it's been really hard for sure, which is why I like teaching these things, because we're all going through this, and most days I do not feel creative.
Yeah. Here's a question from online. We're a small team now working virtually. How might I use improv to build a culture of communications, which is now much more difficult?
Well, my first question would be, to say a bit more about what does a culture of communications mean to you? I think but the short answer is just kind of playing games and being silly, and kind of not maybe talking about work a little bit. And I think maybe that could be a silly or fun question before you kick off a meeting. I write some things on my blog, and I think one of the most recent posts gave you shared some kind of creative check-in questions, like share your current state, your current emotion right now. Like, how are you feeling right now? As if you were a sandwich, and I'd be like, all right, I am a veggie burger on a sesame seed bun. So just like weird check-in questions with teammates can be really helpful to just kind of like break the ice, I guess. I also like to ask people, like, if you're looking out your window right now, what are 5 things you see out your window? Share that.
That also creates mindfulness, right? Because you're starting to notice. Yeah,
definitely. And I think, and being mindful that when people hear improv, they get scared sometimes. It's a little intimidating. And so if you just talk about it as play, I think most people understand what that is and can get on board.
Yeah. And I think this workshop was so important. Depression and anxiety are higher in the entrepreneurship population than the non-entrepreneurship population. And I think equipping entrepreneurs with the tools and skills to to fight anxiety and to fight depression and to build a culture of well-being in their startups from the scratch, right? Because it's really hard when you go into a company that has had toxic communication for years and you're like a consultant. I'm sure Lisa has had this experience. She's like, okay, now I have to fix it, but you've been doing this for 20 plus years. You guys get to start from scratch and you get to build a brand new culture the way you want to define it, right? So and that can be based on your values and what matters to you and what matters to your team, right? And I think improv is a great tool to do that. So beyond how we typically use it in the talent exchange sessions to ideate, it's also a tool to check in, it's a tool to be mindful, and it's a tool to develop your culture and to build your culture as your strategic advantage, right? So they say culture eats strategy for breakfast, right?
Yep.
And the more tools you have to build the culture you envision, the better, right? I hope you guys have gotten as much out of this workshop as I have. Thank you so much, Lisa, for being here.
Thank you for playing, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much for me.
Any final questions? Oh, I do want to go back to the question we asked earlier, though. Is there space for no? And is there a game that can help you prioritize and say no? Right? I think, I mean, for women especially, I think saying yes is we're just so wired to say yes. Right?
Yeah,
and
that's very true.
Yes can get a little exhausting. Right? So even if you are in this open mindset of like anything goes, how can you get comfortable saying no?
That is so important of a question. And I think I can only say I've just get more comfortable as I get older. And I think you have to know your values and know your priorities. And so, for example, for entrepreneurs, if you're doing a lot of client work, I think knowing your values and like what purpose you want to put into the world or your mission and staying very clear to that as your North Star is going to help you say no. So when people come to you, a lot of times people want you to do things that are not necessarily within your scope of work, right? But you're so excited that someone wants you to do the work or they want to pay you or hire you. And just getting back to that kind of core mission that you have or your core values. So I think there's a lot of exercises out there that are about like how to really get your values. If you, again, email me, I'm happy to share some of those, but I think you just have to do a ton of self-awareness. And then if you're at a workplace where this is your boss, again, I really try to be as empathetic as possible and try to put myself in the place of my manager's shoes. They're probably feeling pressure from somewhere else. Can you help me prioritize? I'm here to collaborate. I want to help you. You have to be really honest and say, I can't do all these things now. What would you like me to do this week? And can we have a meeting about that? And really kind of taking control of just being honest about what you can handle. But it's definitely not easy.
Is there anything you guys have tried that's worked?
Okay. So there are very few times that I have to have a firm no. I would say like, yes, and these are the additional resources I would need to accomplish that. And the additional resource might be another employee. But when I do say no and it's a firm no, it's for a really good reason and the reasons don't matter. So, because when you bring reasons to the table, people will be like, okay, well, we can do this and we can do that and we can do that. There are very few times that I have to give a firm no, but when it's a firm no, the reasons don't matter.
And then it's just a sort of no thank you situation.
Yeah. It
like
rarely happens, but I can think of the time that it did, and it was just like no, it's a no for me, and thank you.
No good. And thank you.
I like that. Yeah, no and thank you, and a smile.
Yeah.
That's next game. Yeah. Or awesome. Well, thank you guys. I'm gonna end the live stream, but stay for 1 minute.